Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was unstoppable on offense. For 99% of the league, there was no one that was capable of containing one of the greatest scorers ever. But there was one player that he couldn't figure out. There was one player who didn't just contain him. He didn't just limit him to below his averages. He made him a complete non-factor in the biggest moments. That player is Nate Thurmond. This Hall of Fame center, who was also named one of the top 75 players, was a defensive monster. He revealed the secret of what it truly took to stop the unstoppable. Let's first back up this claim by looking at the numbers. They faced each other 37 times in the regular season between Kareem's rookie year to the 1976-77 season. This is the head-to-head numbers. Kareem averaged 26.3 points per game on 47% shooting. Hold up for just a minute. Those numbers don't look too bad, right? Why are we making such a big deal about that stat line? May I remind you what Kareem accomplished during those 8 seasons. He won 5 MVP awards. He won the scoring title twice. He led the league in field goal percentage once. During those 8 years, he averaged a combined 29.5 points per game on 55% shooting. That means that Nate held him to under 8% of his regular efficiency. That is a significant dip, and he did this to unquestionably the greatest player in the world during his peak. This was no easy task. He knew that it was going to take a lot of work and preparation to stop such a dominant player. He was more than willing to answer the challenge. For example, check out what his former teammate Jim Barnett said about how he used to scout Kareem.
When Kareem Abdul-Jabbar came to the league in 1969, Nate had not faced him yet. Nate flew down to Los Angeles on his own and scouted Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So the next night, when Kareem came to play Nate, Kareem got his low total of the season in any one game of 15. And Nate's always said, I felt like I had an advantage over him from then on.
All that hard work paid off. In their very first matchup, Kareem posted only 16 points on 35% shooting and 5 rebounds. But that wasn't even the worst of it. In their third matchup, he held him to one of the worst performances of his career. He went 7 of 24 from the field, which is 29%. Yes, it's true that this was only his rookie season. He was only going to get better as the years went by. It is also true that there were plenty of times where Kareem was able to assert his dominance over his rival. With that being said, Nate established a trend of what he was capable of doing to the biggest offensive threat. Those 2 performances weren't outliers. There were 15 times where Kareem was held to under 43% shooting. Take for example, this game against the Cavaliers in 1975, where he was held to 13 of 33 shooting. Or this game against the Bulls in 1974, where he was held to 11 of 32 shooting. 1 week later, he was held to 7 of 22 shooting. The numbers confirm that Kareem had a hard time trying to score against him. But exactly how was he able to accomplish this? Kareem answered this question in 1972. This is what he said, according to the Times Tribune. Nobody gives me a tougher time, game in and game out, than Nate Thurmond. Besides being big and strong, at 6'11", 230 pounds, Nate has taught me things about playing defense. He plays the middle effectively, which hurts our inside game, and consequently forces us to shoot from the outside even when we don't want to. He also went on record by saying, he plays me better than anybody ever has. When I score on Nate, I know I've done something. End of quote. This was his answer after a reporter asked who was the toughest player he's ever faced. This was not considered a controversial opinion. He was widely recognized among his peers as the best individual defender in the game.
Nate was a real force in the center position, great shot blocker, and you were always aware, of course, where he was, or you should have been, if you're going to drive to the basket, because long arms. He was a great center.
When I had to play against him in practice a lot of times, the thing that made it so difficult for Nate, he had exceptionally long arms. So I think it made it very difficult, but he was an outstanding defender, one of the best defenders ever, and obviously a guy that could score 15 to 20 points a game along with that.
However, he didn't always get the credibility or the attention he deserved among the national media. That's what usually happened when he didn't play for the Lakers, Knicks, or Celtics during this time. He also missed out on receiving many defensive accolades. The NBA didn't introduce the All-NBA defensive team until 1969. the 4 All-NBA defensive team selections came at the tail end of his prime. The same thing can be said about blocks. The league wasn't keeping track of this stat until the 1973-74 season. By that time, he was 32 years old. That was when he received his 7th and final All-Star selection. So we really can't appreciate just how legendary of a rim protector he was, but we can certainly have an idea. During that season, he averaged 2.9 blocks per game. Then in the off-season, he got traded to the Chicago Bulls. In his debut, he posted 12 blocks. He also included 22 points, 14 rebounds, and 13 assists. That's right, he posted a quadruple-double, the first to ever be recorded. Not a bad way to start your tenure with a new team. This confirms that he was able to continue being a strong defender, even when he was no longer in his prime. In fact, we saw a few examples of what Nate did to Kareem during this phase of his career. That's because he didn't just rely on his athleticism. He mastered the fundamentals and he knew all the tricks of the trade. Take for example, what he said to the New York Times in 1976. "I'm not near the player on offense that I once was. I can't jump as high. But on defense, I've still got a lot left. My instincts and my experience help make up for my age. And blocking shots still turns me on." Pause. I wish they were counting blocked shots in my big years. They started keeping track of them too late for me. End of quote. Make no mistake about it, Nate Thurmond should absolutely be considered one of the greatest defensive big men ever. There's a reason why he ranks 5th all time in career rebounds per game. If you know the history of the game, the title of this video shouldn't be a surprise. He was a problem for everyone. So far, we've only discussed what he did against Kareem in the regular season. What about the playoffs? This is where things start to get even more interesting. They faced each other in 3 straight years, from 1971 to 1973. In those 16 games, Kareem averaged 24.4 points per game on just below 44% shooting. Those numbers are far below his normal production. Using the same sample size as before, Kareem averaged 30.5 points per game on 52% shooting in the playoffs from 1970 to 1977. Once again, Nate held him to under 8% of his regular efficiency. If you look at his track record in the playoffs during the 70s, Kareem was a monster, and he faced legendary big men such as Wilt Chamberlain, Willis Reed, Wes Unseld, Bill Walton, and Dave Cowens. Nobody gave him more problems than Nate the Great. Let's dive into those 3 playoff series. In 1971, we need to give all the props to Kareem. This was a year when the Milwaukee Bucks won their first title, and Kareem did not back down from this challenge. It should be said that in 3 of those 5 games, he was held to under 50% shooting. But he performed well enough, and his play didn't hurt the team. As great of a player as he is, it shouldn't be a surprise that he got the best of Nate in various occasions. In the following postseason, they faced each other in the semifinals again. Here's some context that we have to keep in mind. The 1971-72 season is statistically Kareem's best year, which also means is one of the top 10 greatest regular seasons by every metric. He averaged 34.8 points per game on 57% shooting. This was the player that Nate was asked to contain. Here were the results of the 1972 series. He averaged 22.8 points per game on 40.5% shooting. In 3 of the 5 games, he was held to under 40% shooting. We're talking about a 12-point difference in being held to 17% of your normal efficiency. We have never seen the MVP of the league be held to over 10 points of their scoring average in a playoff series. The only exceptions were Bill Walton in 1978, but injuries took him out of that series. Then there was Joel Embiid in 2023, who was held to 13 points to his regular season average in the first round against the Nets, but that was also due to injuries. For Kareem, we can't blame injuries on this one. It was the defensive greatness of Nate Thurmond. He was asked to do the impossible, and he went above and beyond. In fact, you can make the case that he outplayed the MVP. He averaged more points and was more efficient. He also averaged just as many rebounds and assists. Despite his efforts, the Bucks still won the series 4-1. Even though he successfully took away Milwaukee's best player, they had other players that stepped up. Oscar Robertson, Bob Dandridge, and Lucius Allen were huge. The Warriors weren't deep enough to contend with the defending champions. But in the 1973 playoffs, we have Nate Thurmond's shining moment. They faced each other in the semifinals for the third straight year. Kareem, once again, had himself an MVP caliber season. He averaged 30.2 points per game on 55% shooting. This played a big part in the Bucks winning 60 games. They were among the title favorites. On the other hand, the Warriors won 47 games. They were expected to lose yet again to the superior team, but they shocked the world. They won the series 4-2 and eliminated Milwaukee from the playoffs. Who deserves the most credit for this upset? Nate Thurmond. Here's what he did to Kareem. He averaged 22.8 points per game on 43% shooting. In 5 of the 6 games, he shot under 50% from the field. For the second straight postseason, Kareem played nothing like he did in the regular season when being guarded by Nate. What was his secret? Unfortunately, the full games from these 3 playoff series aren't available for us to watch, only some of the highlights. However, we do have what the San Francisco Examiner wrote about this series. This is what they said. Nate seems to have discovered some flaw that nobody else has previously noticed. When Abdul-Jabbar goes to his right for a hook, there is Thurmond with his hand in the line of vision. When Abdul-Jabbar goes back for a jump shot, he wears Nate Thurmond like an extra t-shirt. In desperation, Abdul-Jabbar moves to his left for a hook. Their way to slam the ball back in his face is Nate Thurmond. End of quote. Every counter that Kareem tried to throw at him, Nate was ready for. He knew his game to perfection. He also used Kareem's biggest weakness against him. He wasn't a physically imposing player. He wasn't one of those centers that used brute force to score. He was more of a finesse player. On the other hand, Nate could play a very physical style. He was also relentless. He worked tirelessly to get rebounds and defend at a high level. He was more than capable of pushing Kareem away from the basket and forcing him to take tough shots. On top of all that, he had a 7'3" wingspan. This allowed him to always give a good contest. He had all the tools necessary to be the only true Kareem stopper. What's even crazier is that he was able to do that while Kareem was at his best. Check out his top 5 least efficient playoff series of his career. We have 3 appearances from the 1988 and 1989 playoffs when he was over 40 years old. Then we have his 2 playoff series against Nate Thurmond at the number 2 and 4 spot. In the middle of his prime, he made him look like a 40-year-old. That's the kind of impact that he had. But Nate didn't just do this to him. Nearly every center that he faced, he forced them to be extremely inefficient. Let's start with Willis Reed. He averaged 18.7 points per game on 47% shooting for his career. Against Nate, he averaged 14.9 points on just under 40% shooting. Then we have Walt Bellamy. He averaged 20.1 points per game on 52% shooting for his career. Against Nate, he averaged 15.4 points on 42% shooting. What about Elvin Hayes? Let's not forget that he was a center during his entire tenure with the San Diego/Houston Rockets. For his career, he averaged 21 points per game on 45% shooting. Against Nate, he averaged 22 points on 41% shooting. We also have Bob Lanier. He averaged 20.1 points per game on 51% shooting for his career. Against Nate, he averaged 19.1 points on 43% shooting. The last player we want to look at is Wilt Chamberlain. Was he able to contain this beast of a player? This is the exception. He averaged 15.7 points on 52% shooting against Nate. This indicates that the majority of their matchups came after he was past his prime. But there's something else that we want to look at. From 1965 to 1968, he won 3 straight MVPs, 2 scoring titles, and averaged 29 points per game on 57% shooting during that span. But against Nate, there were 7 games where he was held to under 40% shooting. Even when he was still playing at an MVP level, Nate was shutting him down. It's no wonder that Wilt gave him the ultimate praise to his former teammate.
Nate Thurmond, he was an incredible defensive basketball player. He played me as well as Bill Russell. He was strong with his incredible long arms because the top of his reach was like that much more than mine.
When 2 of the greatest scorers of all time is saying that about you, there's truly nothing more that can be said. Their stamp of approval confirms that he's in the conversation for the greatest defensive player of all time, maybe even in the same breath as Bill Russell. Do you agree with that assessment? Why do you think he was able to give Kareem so many problems? Where do you have him ranked among your all-time greatest players list? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.